Hey guys, so today I am going to teach you how to make some GIFs. A while ago I made some GIFs for Easter for our church to use on social media, and I had posted them online, and a few of you asked for just a quick video on how I made these. So I actually was asked to make some for our camp for students this summer. So this is a perfect opportunity for me to film on how I go about creating GIFs. Now, I won't be able to teach you how to upload them and get them approved through Giphy. All I did was create them and sent them over to our social media team. I think Giphy's instructions are pretty clear on how to get those approved and how to get those usable and searchable on social media. So today I'm just going to teach you how to make them. And I actually make them on After Effects. And if you don't have any experience on After Effects, there's a ton of YouTube tutorials on how to use After Effects, the basics. And what I will be doing today is actually fairly basic, so it won't be too complicated. Let's go ahead and dive in. So right here, I have this file that I created. It's actually the same file that I made this hat with. It's a quick little smiley face, and one of the eyes is replaced with our student's logo, which is these 4 bars right here. So the idea for this video or this GIF will be to have both eyes open, and then this right eye will wink, and after it winks and reopens, it will reopen as these 4 bars. So we'll go ahead and create our After Effects project. Once you're in After Effects, go ahead and hit new project, and then we'll create a new composition. And this composition, according to Giphy specs, has to be max 720 pixels by 720 pixels. So that's what we'll do, just so we can get the highest resolution possible. And then for our frame rate, they recommend around 11 to 12 frames per second. So we're gonna keep it at 12 frames per second. It's a GIF, so you don't need 24 or even higher frames per second. We'll keep it pretty basic at 12 frames per second, and then their max duration that they recommend is 15 seconds long. So we'll create a 15-second long composition. That way we have that room in case our animation goes a little long, but I see us probably going between 5 through 8 seconds long on the whole animation. So all our settings look correct, so we'll go ahead and hit OK so that our composition is ready. And then from there, I'm going to drag in my Illustrator file for the smiley. I am going to drag in the Illustrator file, shrink it to size. Remember to hold Shift so that it stays proportionate. And then something I like to do once I bring in Illustrator files is right-clicking, create, and then I'm going to create shapes from vector layer. So what that does is create shapes using After Effects shape tools. And then I just go ahead and delete the Illustrator file within After Effects. So then all that does, it separates different files on here. The layers we're going to be working on is with group 7, group 6, group 5, and group 4. For now, we are going to hide these layers, and then group 8, we're going to go ahead and duplicate. So go ahead and click it and then hit Command D, and that duplicates your layer. And then just for reference, I'm going to turn on one of those bars just to see where I have my eye. And then that duplicated layer that I created, I'm going to click it and drag it over. If you hold Shift, it keeps it at the same height as your other eye. So right about there is where we're going to put our new eye. We're going to shut layer 7 back down. All right, so there is our regular smiley. We're going to expand this group 9 right here, and then under transform is where we're going to create our animation. Now, because we're only wanting to shrink it down in height, we're going to want to unlink this under the scale. So what that does is that gives us control between the 2 different scales. If I were to leave this on, it scales the whole thing up and down proportionately, which sometimes that's useful, but for this situation it is not. So what we're wanting to do is for it to do that wink. So let's go ahead and start with the animation. We're gonna hit the little timer here next to scale so we can create our keyframe. And then regardless of where it ends up finishing, I just drag over first, and then I bring the keyframe to where I want the animation to end. I might need to drag it on later, but then that gives me an idea of where I need to place it. So a little slow on the wink, a little quicker. All right, pretty quick. So that is the wink. And then once it winks, what we're gonna do, we're gonna stay where that last frame is. So we're gonna want these to end there. So what we're gonna do is drag over a few frames around here. What we're gonna do is this right here. We're gonna keyframe it for all 4 lines. And what that does is that keeps in position that it's supposed to be. That's the final position I want those bars to be at. So back to the wink. What I want these to do is move in position up. So I'm gonna center these. 205 for all of them. So that's kind of already a glimpse of what our animation is gonna look like right there. But I want this wink to start a little later, and I want it to be a little slower. Drag all of these keyframes over. And I'm not an expert in After Effects, so there's probably someone watching this that's making fun of me for doing things a harder way. Now it's a little too slow. So now that those eyes have been animated, I'm gonna grab all these 4 layers. We're gonna group those together. That way we can control them all together. And what I'm going to do, drag the beginning of it over to when the wink finishes. So now we're going to animate just the entire group here. What we're gonna do is we want our bars to be fully expanded when they start separating from each other. So we're gonna do scale keyframe right there, and then right around here. We want to unlink these again. We want to shrink the y-axis down to 0. So that way what it does is if we play it back is that right there. And that's pretty much it. Pretty short GIF. Now what I want to do, I'm too lazy to go in and change all the color on all of it. So what I'm going to do is use an effect called change to color, drag that over. What you're going to do is grab this eyedropper if it's not already in black and white. I'm going to drag this color and then change this over to black. If you created your entire shape in After Effects, then you don't need to do this step. I'm just too lazy to change the color on every single group there. And then I'm just going to change the setting to hue, lightness, and saturation. And then it changes my whole layer to black. I'm going to leave a few frames after the animation's over. I'm going to drag my timeline over. And I'm going to send this over to Media Encoder. And once you're in Media Encoder, what you're going to want to do is leave it as a video, but you want transparency on it. And there's some plugins you can buy where you can just export a GIF from After Effects. But I'm just showing you the way where you don't have to purchase a plugin. That way you can do it regardless of what you have. So what you're gonna want to do is go down to QuickTime. So it exports it in an MOV file, and we have access to exporting a ProRes file. And then under all these presets, what you're gonna want to do is go to ProRes 4444 with alpha. What that does is it gives us transparency on the export. An extra step is once you select that, click that, it'll open the larger amount of settings for this composition. You can just unclick export audio since we don't actually have audio on there, and you can use maximum render quality. We'll go ahead and hit OK, choose your destination for the export. I'm gonna put it on here under GIF tutorial. I'm gonna call it smiley wink. Go ahead and hit save, and then go ahead and start your encode. Something that is an issue, if you have one of the newer Macs with the M1 processor, Photoshop doesn't let you import movie files or any video file anymore with the M1 processor. I did talk with Adobe and they said they are planning on fixing that. So if you have an M1 processor, you're gonna have to use Photoshop using Rosetta. So what we're gonna do is go to the applications folder, find Adobe Photoshop, and then open your Adobe Photoshop folder, right click Adobe Photoshop, then you're gonna hit get info. And then you're gonna wanna click open using Rosetta. That slows it down only because it's using the Intel version of Photoshop as opposed to the Apple Silicon version of Photoshop, but that is our workaround to be able to import movie or any video files into Photoshop. So now that that's clicked, we're gonna go ahead and open Photoshop. And once you're in Photoshop, go ahead and find your exported animation. Obviously, since mine was black, you can't see it. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab it, drag it in. And in theory, it should be visible. Yeah. If you had no idea that Photoshop could handle video, well, now you do. It's meant more for like, obviously like basic animations. You can animate through Photoshop. I'm just stronger at animating in After Effects. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go hit File, and then we're gonna hit Export and Save for Web Legacy. Under Save for Web Legacy, that's where you will export as a GIF. Here you will have your options. It might default to PNG for you, but make sure to have GIF selected. Since mine's black and white, I'm gonna limit the colors to 2. Here you can select, obviously the more colors you have, the higher the size is on your final file. You can set parameters as well for the looping. I always just set the looping to be forever. You can have it loop once so that once it does the animation, stops and doesn't repeat itself. But I always have it to repeat itself. Once that's done, I'm gonna hit save. It'll open your save window, and then I'm gonna put it under our folder here, smiley wink GIF. Once you hit save on that, it'll have it ready. And there is our final animation as a GIF, and it'll be repeating itself. Pretty cool. So yeah, like I said earlier, I have no idea what the process is to upload these files onto Giphy for them to be usable. It's not too complicated. Your first few GIFs, I think, take a while to be imported just because of all the approval process. But once you get all that going, it should be quicker. That is it on how to create a GIF. It's not too complicated. Obviously, it gets as complicated as the animation that you're trying to create is. If your animation is pretty simple, you can create GIFs in less than like 10 minutes if you know what you're doing, or if you know what you are trying to create. What might take a little longer is getting around After Effects if you've never played around with it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful and that you can create some awesome GIFs. If you can create some awesome GIFs, I'd like to see them, and just drop me a link and I'll make sure to watch those. Thanks.